Welcome, committee members, staff, presenters, and all who are watching live from TVW to the Senate and Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee meeting. Happy cutoff week, everyone. So we are, it's a day to celebrate. The committee is going to caucus first, and then we'll enter executive session on a few bills, and then we'll take the public hearing. With that, the committee is entering executive session. Staff, will you please brief the bills?
Good morning. Happy Friday. Senate Bill 5423 was heard February 5th. This bill establishes the Right to Repair Act. Under this bill, beginning January 1st, 2026, original manufacturers of digital electronic products must make available to independent repair providers on fair and reasonable terms certain parts, tools, and documentation for the diagnosis, maintenance, and repair of digital electronic products. The bill provides required disclosures for repair providers. Several types of entities and goods are exempt from the requirements in the bill, and enforcement of the act is through the Consumer Protection Act. You have a substitute labeled B offered by Senator Wellman. The substitute specifies that repair providers are Washington businesses, modifies the definition of part from a replacement component that was generally available to specify that parts are limited to those provided by the manufacturer to authorized repair providers. It adds a parts pairing exception for biometric components, specifies that manufacturers are not required to provide source code, and provides that manufacturers are not responsible for independent repair providers. You have an amendment labeled B1 offered by Senator Wellman. The amendment specifies that the requirement to provide parts, tools, and documentation and the restriction on parts pairing do not apply if the manufacturer provides an equivalent or better replacement product at no charge to the customer. You also have an amendment labeled A offered by Senator Wellman. This is the same amendment I just described as B1, except it is written to the underlying bill. Turning to Senate Bill 5680, you heard this bill last Friday. This bill requires an original equipment manufacturer for mobility devices to, on fair and reasonable terms, make available to any independent repair provider or owner the documentation, parts, embedded software, firmware, or tools that are intended for use with the equipment. The bill specifies what an original manufacturer is not required to do under the Act. Enforcement is through the Consumer Protection Act, and there are no amendments.
Next up is Senate Bill 5627 relating to safe excavation practices. You heard this bill on February 14th. As a reminder, the bill modifies requirements in the Damage Prevention Act, requires a one-number locator service to maintain a web-based platform providing the same services as the toll-free number, and amends civil and criminal penalties in the Act. There are two amendments. First, there's a proposed substitute labeled C offered by Senator Ramos, which removes proposed language throughout the bill relating to using a digital mapping software to electronically mark an excavation area or underground facility. It strikes the section establishing new requirements for hazardous liquid and gas pipeline operators. Some of those requirements included ensuring underground facilities installed after the bill's effective date are locatable, and adding location information for unlocatable facilities to an operator-maintained database. It requires facility operators and locating personnel to use whiskers to make markings understandable for up to 45 calendar days. It prohibits facility operators from charging the Washington State Department of Transportation fees for design locating, and I'm told this should eliminate WashDOT's fiscal impacts. It provides that when directional boring will be implemented as a method of underground excavation, white lining must be supplemented by physical locates, which include potholing or daylighting to avoid blind boring. It strikes language in a civil penalty section relating to certain violations being subject to a $5,000 penalty for each violation rather than for those occurring within a 3-year period. And when an excavator failing to give notice of a planned excavation damages an underground facility rather than requiring the damage, rather than damaging a marked underground facility. And it adds a labor organization representative to the Dig Law Safety Committee, and it makes other changes to the intent and definition sections, which are included in the amendment's effects statement. Next, there's an amendment to the proposed substitute labeled C1 offered by Senator Harris, which strikes proposed language authorizing a general contractor to provide notice on behalf of an excavator and associated requirements and determination of liability. It specifies that for purposes of extending a facility operator's marking deadline due to situations outside of the party's control, an agreement in writing includes email. It modifies the maximum penalties for certain violations of the Act as follows. For an excavator violating the Act and causing damage to a pipeline facility, the maximum penalty is reduced to $10,000 from $25,000. For a pipeline operator failing to locate or mark its facilities where damage occurs based on this failure, the maximum penalty is similarly reduced to $10,000 from $25,000. For certain violations of the Act not resulting to facility damage, the maximum penalty is increased to $10,000 from $5,000. It provides that an excavator who fails to give notice of a planned excavation or damages an underground facility is liable for specified costs and penalties rather than requiring the damage occur because of the failure to give notice. And it specifies that the Dig Law Safety Committee's resolution of a violation complaint may not be used as evidence to establish liability in any civil proceeding relating to the same or similar subject matter. And there are no other amendments.
Next up is Senate Bill 5445. You did hear a proposed substitute on Tuesday, February 4th. The bill allows an electric utility to comply with renewable energy targets under the Energy Independence Act if the utility invests at least 2% of its total annual retail revenue requirement in local energy resilience projects. There is one proposed sub offered by Senator Banky. The sub that you heard is labeled D. The sub for executive action is labeled E. And the proposed sub labeled E allows a qualifying electric utility to meet its renewable energy targets under the EIA by using any combination of eligible renewable resources and local energy resiliency projects rather than by investing at least 2% of its total annual retail revenue requirement. It narrows the definition of local energy resilience project to meet any investments in the utility's service territory that only includes a combination of accelerated conservation and demand response. And it defines accelerated conservation as conservation included in the qualifying utility's most recent cost-effective conservation potential under the EIA and in excess of the biennial acquisition target under the EIA. And it provides a formula for measuring annual energy savings and that any accelerated conservation savings may not be in excess of conservation savings under the EIA. And that's all there is on that bill.
Madam Chair, may I speak
Yes,
to my
please.
amendment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Senator Wellman.
Thank you very much. I'd like to go back to Senate Bill 5423, digital electronics repair. We've had quite a bit of contention and discussion about this bill. 5 states have right to repair laws: New York, Minnesota, California, Oregon, and Colorado. Apple has been a leader in security and complies with 4 of them already. But the Oregon model, we feel, is confusing and not the model for Washington State. We feel Colorado has struck the right balance between repair, access, and consumer protection in technical aspects. And you already heard that Google, in committee testimony, was that they are part of the Colorado bill, which is what is in my proposed substitute. My amendment mirrors Colorado's approach, ensuring security while maintaining consumer choice. And I'm especially proud of the relationship that Apple has had in regard to the market and security. As we know, they have gone up against the federal government when demands were made for information as far as Apple was concerned. And there's never been a time in history when our personal information on our phones is more vulnerable to cybersecurity issues. And this is not just your personal banking information on your phone, but reproductive health data on phones, pregnancy trackers, ovulation trackers, and information that can be used against women and has been used against women, in other states. I also looked into the repairability update that came from iFixit, which I think has been pressing for right to repair. And actually, the 16 series is shaping up to be, quote, the most repairable iPhones we've ever seen. Our experience with the repair assistant was seamless while repairing iPhone hardware. Sometimes is complex. On the software side, Apple has arguably raised the bar for the entire industry. I think that providing security, as Apple has done, is critical. Their biometrics are an important and should be a secure accessibility feature. For those who are blind, the idea that you can have your facial recognition or your touch recognition get you to your data into your device, I think is really a critical, but while at the same time protecting that data. So I am asking for, to remove the First Amendment that is there, not bring it forward, and to take the Second Amendment, PSSB, and the amendment to that, which is the Amazon Amendment, which I also feel adds to the benefit of the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, with that, thank you. We will break for caucus. Yeah, sounds good. Where are we going? Which two? Welcome back. We will move into executive session. We have Senate Bill 5423 before us. There is a proposed substitute labeled B offered by Senator Wellman. Senator.
Madam Chair, I move adoption of amendment labeled B1 to the proposed substitute. I move adoption of amendment B offered by Senator Wellman.
Is there discussion?
Briefly, I'm asking essentially for the Colorado bill, which was agreed upon by many companies, many major companies, including Google and Apple. And I think it is a way to move forward that allows the right to repair to do their work while still maintaining brand identity, which I think is really important when we're dealing with large companies. I like to believe that Republicans and Democrats can come together and support business. And I think that this is the way to support business. Thank you.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
Yeah, and I would add, coming from the Republican side, we agree there's a path forward that I think has worked out really in the details of what cybersecurity is still a key priority within this, and still allowing the individuals the right to go ahead and see the parts that they can repair in the electronics that are out there. It's a good path forward that we see that we can support and urge any yes vote.
I am going to ask for a no vote on this. I do hear my colleagues and their concerns, but I think we need to have a strong consumer protection in this bill today. So all in favor of the proposed sub, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. The proposed substitute has failed. Okay, what do I do now?
All members who are in favor, please of adopting the proposed substitute, please raise your hand. All members who are opposed to adopting the proposed substitute, please raise your hand. Madam Chair, there are 6 opposed, 5 in favor.
Thank you. I move that 54, go ahead.
Oh, I move the proposed substitute receive I move that if the
5423.
Yeah. I move that Senate Bill 5423 receive a due pass recommendation, be sent to the Rules Committee.
Is there any discussion? Oh, go ahead. Senator McEwen. Correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just extraordinarily frustrated because this issue's been around for a number of years. And I think at the end of the day, all of us agree that we can find a path to get this done. And we had a path with bipartisan support to finally move forward. And once again, though, we're going to revert back to something that's not palatable to both industry and consumers, and to both sides of the aisle. And I'm frustrated by that process that we can't once again just get to a spot where there's been broad support. This has been hard worked, and we're just going to toss that aside. And I just find that frustrating. So with that, I will be a no.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. I ask for a yes vote on this. I think it's a good bill, some good consumer protection. So all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. The bill has passed subject to signatures. We now move to Senate Bill 56. We have Senate Bill 5680 before us.
Madam Chair, I move that the bill receive a due pass recommendation and be sent to the Rules Committee.
Is there any discussion? Good bill, vote yes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The bill has passed subject to signatures. We have Senate Bill 5627 before us. There is a proposed substitute labeled C offered by Senator Ramos. And there is an amendment labeled C.1 offered by Senator Harris.
Madam Chair, I move adoption of amendment labeled C.1 to the proposed substitute.
Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, taking a look at this amendment quickly, there's some things that I like in it, but there's a couple I have questions on how they will actually work. So I'd really like to work with the sponsor of this, if this rules to the floor, and we could add some of this in here at that time. But at this point, I would say a no vote.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. The amendment to the proposed substitute has failed.
I move that the proposed substitute receive a due pass recommendation be sent to the Ways and Means Committee.
Is there any discussion? Good bill, vote yes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The bill has passed subject to signatures. Oh, wow. We have Senate Bill 5445 before us. There is a proposed substitute labeled E offered by Senator Banky.
Madam Chair, I move adoption of the proposed substitute.
Is there any discussion? Senator Banky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Real quick, this is an amendment that reflects really ongoing dialogue. I want to thank Department of Ecology getting together with some of our members from Glenn Blackman, NWAC, and as well as our WAPUTA members, really taking the time in the last couple of days, doing the due diligence to have the conversation moving forward. We know this is a compromise in the compliance pathways, and we know there's still a lot of work to be done, but I'm urging a yes vote.
Thank you very much. I agree with that. There's still some work to be done, but I'm asking for a yes vote today. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The proposed substitute is adopted.
Madam Chair, I move that the proposed substitute receive a due pass recommendation be sent to the Rules Committee.
Is there any discussion? Good bill, vote yes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The bill has passed subject to signatures. Oh, you start this one.
Madam Chair, I move that Kurt Beckett gubernatorial appointment number 9214 be reported with the recommendation that the appointment be confirmed.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Good person, vote, good appointee, vote yes. I don't want to make a judgment. All in favor, vote say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Kurt Beckett, gubernatorial appointment number 9214 has received a confirmation recommendation subject to signatures. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I move that Casey Sixkiller gubernatorial appointment number 9224 be reported with a recommendation that the appointment be confirmed.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Casey Sixkiller gubernatorial appointment number 9224 has received a confirmation recommendation subject to signatures. And that ends our executive session, and we will move to the public hearing. But we have many testifiers signed up for today's bills, so we are going to use a 1-minute timer. Staff, may we please have a briefing on 5380.
Before you is Senate Bill 5380. For some very quick background, under current law, the State Environmental Protection Act provides a way to identify possible environmental impacts that may result from governmental decisions. Ecology is responsible for SEPA rules. The bill before you amends SEPA to integrate environmental justice considerations into certain project decisions with the intent to reduce disparities in cumulative environmental and health impacts. Environmental justice under this bill uses the same definition as provided in the HEAL Act. Under this bill, a new section is added to SEPA that requires ecology to add environmental justice to the SEPA elements of the environment as well as questions to the SEPA checklist. Through SEPA, lead agencies would be required to create an environmental justice impact statement, referred to as an EJIS, of potentially impactful projects in pollution-burdened communities. Pollution-burdened communities and potentially impactful projects are both defined in the bill. The EJIS must be completed before or at the same time as a SEPA threshold determination. The EJIS must be transmitted to OFM and publicly posted in advance of a public hearing. Finally, ecology or a local clean air agency are prohibited from issuing a notice of construction under the State Clean Air Act for certain air contaminant sources located in a census tract ranked as 9 or 10 for environmental exposures. A fiscal note is available, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions, so thank you very much. And Senator Lovelet, tell us about your bill.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. For the record, members of the committee, Senator Liz Lovelet representing the 40th Legislative District, and very pleased to be bringing this policy before our committee today. So, the challenge with an EIS or a SEPA review is that it really looks at an isolated project without really considering the cumulative burden that comes from the emissions of many of the projects in our manufacturing and industrial spaces. So it's one thing to say, well, yes, the emissions of this one particular facility may meet our emission standards, but when you have that next to a freeway and another factory and an airport and all of these other cumulative factors, you make it so that we are just having negative impacts on health outcomes for these communities that are already really overburdened in their air pollution. And the state has done tremendous work on really mapping where these kind of hot spots are around the state, where people are having lower life expectancies, higher asthma rates, higher heart attack and stroke rates. And so when we take that information and then we say, yeah, but it's okay, go ahead and add one more project on top of it, we are really just saying it's appropriate for us to continue failed policies of putting our lowest income people in harm's way when it comes to having to bear pollution. This is really meaningful to our frontline communities and really urge the body to really think deeply about where we should be placing these kinds of emissions-heavy facilities so that we can, in fact, start turning the tide on health outcomes for vulnerable communities. And urge you to just keep an open mind for this consideration.
I don't see any questions. So, Madam Vice Chair, will you begin the public testimony?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to call on John Worthington, Jean Hill, and Jamie Strobel.
Where are they?
You can hear. John, can you hear me? John Worthington? If you can hear me, please unmute. Looks like John is not here, so Jamie Strobel, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And
Great.
see you. Go ahead,
Thank you.
please.
Thank you, Chair Shoemake and members of the committee. My name is Jamie Strobel, and I'm the Director of Climate Action and Resilience with the Nature Conservancy in Washington, here in support of Senate Bill 5380. For decades, we've seen polluting facilities go up near communities of color, indigenous communities, and low-income neighborhoods, resulting in a disproportionate negative cumulative impacts to health and well-being. The challenge is that our regulatory system often looks at these issues of pollution in our air, soil, and waters in isolation. And with this siloed approach, we are missing how these pollutants layer on top of each other over time to create poorer health outcomes and lower life expectancies. By conducting a cumulative impact analysis on a site-by-site basis, this legislation gives us tools to address a long-standing gap in our ability to protect communities and support healthy environments and families. These assessments are limited to polluting activities within communities that are clearly already overburdened by pollution. Thank you, Senator Lovelet, Representative Mena, and Friends Centered for your leadership on this legislation, and I think this fills a critical gap for Washington State.
Thank you so much. Jean Hill, if you're on, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. And thank you, committee, for letting me speak on this bill. Jean Welch Hill with the Washington State Catholic Conference in support of 5380. The effects of climate change are borne by the most vulnerable in society, both here in the U.S. and throughout the world. Environmental justice is a priority to protect the dignity of every life. We welcome the framework proposed by SB 5380, which would take into account the cumulative environmental public health stressors experienced by overburdened populations. We know that certain populations disproportionately bear the effects of pollution. This bill is an opportunity to address this injustice and calls for deeper analysis of who is impacted and who is repeatedly impacted. We also support the opportunity for members of the community to be given a voice when new projects are seeking permits or renewals. The Catholic Bishops of Washington State, thank you for your work to care for our common home, and we ask you to pass 5380 out of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your great and time-sensitive testimony. I'd like to call up Drew Zaborowski and Jessica Rowe. Drew Zaborowski, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. I just got the prompt to join as a panelist.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We can hear you now. I can't quite see you, but I think you're going to pull up in a second. So please proceed.
Awesome. Great. Good morning. My name is Drew Zaborowski. I am a small local private developer of industrial buildings in the Puget Sound, advocating against the subject bill here today. My specific concerns to this bill include, one, a dramatic increase in permitting lead times for not only new projects, but also existing projects that trigger certain ambiguous thresholds. Two, a broad geographic scope of the environmental disparities map, which encompasses nearly every industrial submarket from Arlington to Chehalis, including dedicated industrial land in the ports and Kent Valley with no immediate proximity to residences. Third, a vague definition of potentially impactful projects that are ambiguous in nature, could incorporate even the smallest industrial projects, and will create uncertainty for lead agencies who, in my experience, often struggle to meet statutory timelines for SEPA already. In summary, this bill creates negative economic impacts to our vital port-based economy by reducing the supply of sufficient industrial facilities. And it should be taken into consideration that the consumer will ultimately bear impacts to a reduction of supply of industrial facilities due to higher rent and development costs that will ultimately be passed down to tenants and consumers.
Thank you very much. Jessica Rowe, please proceed.
Hi, good morning, Chair and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm Jessica Rowe, a land use attorney with McCullough Hill, and also testifying here on behalf of NAMP Washington State. We're testifying in opposition because we are concerned that the bill adds a lengthy, expensive process onto an already lengthy SEPA process, including a full EIS for any potentially impactful project. The maps identifying pollution burden communities include massive areas along I-5, including I-5, meaning that all asset types, from medical research facilities to housing projects, would be impacted by this bill. We're concerned that requiring a full EIS and a public hearing process on a single element of the environment is a radical departure from the typical SEPA process, which would usually only require a full EIS where significant impact could not be mitigated by underlying zoning and with typical permit conditions. Additionally, the definition of environmental justice is so broad, we're concerned that the process will be weaponized by those who simply wish to oppose a particular development, including housing. There is no guidance to agencies on how to apply.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and there's a lot of testifiers. Appreciate it. Okay, can we have J.C. Harris if he's here?
Yes, can you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is J.C. Harris. I represent Sea-Tac Noise.info. Our members are concerned about the negative impacts from the 8th largest airport in America We are the 9 and 10 overburdened communities you never hear about. The airport is undergoing the largest expansion in its history, but there will be no cumulative mitigation under either SEPA or NEPA. In addition to the air, the airport was built on a lake and is the source of all main creeks in the area, and every year deposits thousands of gallons of carcinogenic products like PFAS. Sea-Tac water affects hundreds of thousands of people. The HEAL Act was a great first step, but SB 5380 provides the operational piece to put good words into action. It is a way to finally plug the gaping loopholes that plague our residents who are so powerless near the airport. You will hear opposition over construction delay. Having worked on large projects for 30 years, these are rarely due to proper environmental
Thank you
measures.
so much, Mr. Harris.
We strongly support passage of SB 5380. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, could we have Carly Michaels if you're in the room here? And then I'm going to just list a number of people that all want to be paneled together, and we'll have to break it up a little bit. Guillermo Rogel, Nico Wedekind, Mia Ayala Marshall, and Ione Jones. And then we also have Mariel Kaminsky and Paul Tabayonyon on deck. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Shoemake and members of the committee. My name is Carly Michaels. I'm the Environmental Policy Director at the Washington Public Ports Association. Ports are economic drivers connecting communities to global markets, creating jobs, and investing in economic and environmental improvements. I signed in con today on SB 5380 because it impacts that mission. We strongly support the intent of environmental justice and understanding cumulative impacts projects may have. However, for many of our port members who plan for and undertake numerous projects a year that are subject to SEPA, this creates significant new challenges. We believe these goals can be achieved more holistically and not serve as additional financial burden. I want to highlight three main concerns. I've sent you my full testimony. First is prohibiting the consideration of economic benefit, creating project delays, and additional project costs. There are a lot of conversations ongoing relating to improving permitting, and we think that this can be accomplished and incorporate environmental justice in a way that does not lead to less but more expensive community projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. I appreciate it. And if you have any more to add, please go ahead and send it in writing. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. Okay. Guillermo, thank you so much. And then we have the rest of the four panelists on remote. So
great.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for organizing that. Chair Shoemake, members of the committee, my name is Guillermo Rogel, and I'm the legislative advocate with Front and Centered. We are a network of 60 community-based organizations rooted in communities of color and low-income populations. I really like hearing some of the con testimony go up before me because I don't think that we need to choose between a good economy and community health. I think we could do both at the same time, and this bill aims to do exactly that. 4 years ago, we passed the HEAL Act, which defined environmental justice, but then also changed the culture of how we create climate law and also invest climate revenue. So this bill helps us make sure that SEPA currently, which doesn't currently capture the impact to community health, will actually do that, and that we have a robust analysis of what are the environmental justice impacts of certain projects and facilities. This bill will help us have a more holistic approach to permitting, a cleaner and more equitable Washington, and that no community faces disproportionate impact due to certain projects that are built in their communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nico Wedekind, and I'm not sure if I said that right, so please correct me.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, my name is Nico Wedekind, and I am here on behalf of the Front and Centered Coalition. As you've already heard, Senate Bill 5380 seeks to incorporate a cumulative impact analysis into the permitting process for a limited number of permits issued in Washington state. Cumulative impacts are the combined environmental exposures a community experiences. Cumulative impact analysis is the quantification of these exposures, taking into account population characteristics such as the socioeconomic factors that may influence how the various environmental and public health stressors affect community members' health, well-being, and quality of life. Looking at cumulative impacts from the community level, we can see that there are disparities at the level of exposure across different populations and multiple factors that are leading to these disparities across the state. In this sense, cumulative impact analysis is concerned with addressing the root causes of environmental health disparities. This is not a new concept. Senate Bill 5380 builds on similar laws passed in New York and New Jersey, as well as policies in multiple states that understand that pollution in air, water, and waste combined with social determinants of health have a cumulative impact on communities. We urge a vote yes on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Ayala Marshall, Mia Ayala Marshall, are you there?
Yeah, thank you. Chair Shoemake, members of the committee, my name is Mia Ayala Marshall, and I represent the Duwamish River Community Coalition, an organization seeking to elevate the voices of community members in South Seattle's Duwamish Valley who experience stark cumulative health disparities due to multiple environmental injustices. In the Duwamish Valley, where I work every day, our community faces stark health disparities. My community endures the highest rates of childhood asthma in the county and faces significantly reduced lifespans, which are a direct consequence of the cumulative pollution in our area. Senate Bill 5380 is not merely a bill. It's a lifeline for communities like mine. It aims to tackle the root causes of these health disparities by addressing the cumulative environmental burdens we face in the permitting process. This legislation is crucial for bringing about change in environmental policies and ensuring that our children and future generations can lead healthier lives in a cleaner environment. Your support for Senate Bill 5380 is essential in the fight for environmental justice and the well-being of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Iona Jones.
Good morning, Chair Shoemake and members of the committee. My name is Ione Jones, representing Kumshtinik, a tribal grassroots organization seeking to change the systems affecting the Lower Snake River Palouse and member of the Front and Centered Coalition. Kumshtinik and its partners actively support Indigenous rights by promoting traditional ecological knowledge, such as the use of native plants for medicinal use, soil filtration and regeneration, aligning with cultural and historical practices. The Curb Pollution Act would build on progress enabled by laws like the HEAL Act by incorporating environmental justice concerns in state policymaking, investments, and planning, and by addressing the disproportionate impact of pollution at the source. The result will be improvements in health, environmental protection, and quality of life in the areas that have suffered the most statewide, and benefits for everyone in Washington state. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ione Jones. Mariel Kaminsky.
Good morning. I am Mariel Kaminsky, and I work with Falmouth Outdoors Project, a community-based organization which serves Latine, migrant, multilingual, and newcomer youth and families in Whatcom and Skagit counties, and particularly those who vote and reside in the 42nd Legislative District. Falmouth Outdoors and the communities we serve wholeheartedly support the Curb Act. The Curb Act puts in place protections around further development of toxic facilities in our communities, which are overburdened by toxic waste. Our communities live closest to freeways and highly trafficked areas, or next to riverways, which have experienced devastating flooding in recent years. Title I schools, where our students attend, have received water testing from the Department of Health, which reflect high levels of lead. All children and families have the right to clean water, air, education, and physical, mental, and emotional well-being. The Curb Act will make a huge difference and tangible difference in our communities. We support it and hope you will too.
Thank you so much. Paul, and can you educate me on how to say your last name? Tabayoyon?
Yes, that's correct. Hello, my name is Paul Tabayoyan. I'm from the Asia Pacific Islander Coalition of Yakima, and I've called Yakima my home for over 45 years. I come to you in support because this would be a healing step to repairing the environmental monitoring that we have been experiencing in our rural and growing communities across Washington state, not only in Yakima. Growing industries are located upwind within residential and business communities today and add growing layers of pollution. In Yakima, we see heavy truck traffic amongst large industry, as well as many of the other layer pollutants that sometimes are being forgotten. Please support the Curb Act as a step to preventing further damage to our community's health and property values while beginning the process of lessening future air pollution that affects our residents' health and business growth and potential tourism through the permitting update that really do need to be done to help create modern communities that all have a chance for cleaner air in their neighborhoods. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Okay, we're going to go remote to Darcy Nonamaker, and then we'll have an in-person panel with Andrea Smiley, John Flanagan, and Peter Godlewski.
Great. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Darcy Nonamaker, and I'm here to speak in support of 5380 on behalf of Washington Conservation Action. Washington Conservation Action is a nonprofit organization that is nearly 60 years old. One of our first victories was passing the State Environmental Policy Act. Over time, we know that laws like SEPA need to be updated to better serve the people of the state and support the public interest. This bill is a great example of updating a law to provide more accurate information on environmental impacts and support communities that already bear a higher pollution burden. The bill is also on the partnership agenda for the Environmental Priorities Coalition, which means that it's supported by 27 statewide nonprofit organizations who make up the coalition and represent thousands of people in every corner of the state. We commend the community-led work around this bill and the collaboration on the policy, and we urge its passage. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, John Flanagan with the Port of Seattle, testifying other today regarding Senate Bill 5380. As I mentioned in this committee on Tuesday, in 2019, the Port of Seattle was the first port authority in the country to formally partner with the near airport community to specifically address environmental justice issues. The Port of Seattle wants to find actionable and realistic strategies to advance the work of achieving environmental justice in our region and state, and we support the overall intent and the end goals of this legislation. We would disagree, however, with the methods and the process used in the current draft of the bill to reach those goals and to advance that work. We agree on the what, just not on the how. House version of this bill was substantially amended in a positive way, and if this proposal is to advance, we'd like to see similar improvements made. Additionally, we'd ask the House sponsor to consider adding language that would exempt SEPA lead agencies from the effects of the bill if they have in some way adopted an environmental justice framework that meets certain criteria. Essentially, can we exempt folks that are taking proactive action? Thanks.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Andrea Smiley here on behalf of the Building Industry Association of Washington. We are here in opposition to this bill for many of the reasons already stated by testifiers. While we believe this is well intended, we also believe that there are unintended consequences, such as halting projects that provide good paying jobs and would directly benefit those communities that we're trying to benefit with this bill in particular. So we are in opposition and hope to not see this go through committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Shoemake, members of the committee. For the record, Peter Godlewski with the Association of Washington Business, also signed and opposed this morning. Again, would also like to echo all of the testimony you've heard with the concerns about this bill. Would just like to note 2 points. One, there are a number of projects which go through SEPA that receive a do not impact of no significance, but this bill would require them still to go through a mini SEPA before that process is concluded. So we're basically front loading the SEPA work for projects that don't actually undergo, an EIS work for projects that don't end up undergoing an EIS. So have some concerns about that. And then also that the focus of this bill would also have some impacts on elements like the transit-oriented development or other sort of affordable housing options that the state does have an interest in on. So do
Senator
have some
Loveland.
concerns.
To be clear, the bill does not apply to residential development.
So the
Third
bill,
question, Senator Loveland.
Yeah.
so
Staff, wouldn't you agree the bill does not apply to residential development? That's correct. Thank you.
Want to respond to that?
Just that the bill as drafted doesn't apply to residential development with affordable housing elements, but there are elements of housing that we do think would be pulled under this if they don't have any affordable housing. So we do think there is some concern there.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Eric Pratt online. Eric, if you can hear me, please go ahead and unmute.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you. Go ahead.
Thanks. Yes, my name is Eric Pratt. I reside in the 24th Legislative District, and I signed in today in opposition to 5380, and I hope you are too. I just don't understand why we need to add what could potentially be some arbitrary and capricious requirements for some important things that I thought were already addressed with other environmental policies. And that's why it sort of seems to add something that could be skewed according to subjective metrics, instead of really focusing essentially on scientific metrics, which if we're really taking environmental stewardship seriously, that should be our foundational core. And I understand that we want to make sure we develop correctly and things like that, but I don't think this will help the actual health of any community at all. So I urge you, do not pass this out of committee.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Joshua Estes.
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Josh Estes. I represent the Association of Western Pulp and Paper Workers Union, commonly referred to as the AWPPW. We support environmental justice and clean, healthy communities, but we oppose Senate Bill 5380 as written. The bill's vague criteria for environmental assessments could lead to permit denials and project delays and put family wage union-backed jobs at risk, especially in rural and industrial communities. You know, if this bill passes as is, the unintended consequences could be the closure of critical facilities like the ones we work in, devastating not only our members' livelihoods, but entire communities that rely on these jobs. Once these mills close, they rarely come back. We would agree with previous commenters that we can have both a strong economy and healthy communities. Unfortunately, we can't achieve both if we trade economic stability for regulatory uncertainty. We urge the committee to pause the bill and bring labor, industry, and environmental advocates together to create a balanced path forward that ensures a healthy environment without sacrificing the livelihoods of hardworking families. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Carrie Sessions, if you're available. And on deck would be Chris Covert-Bolds.
Chair Shoemake, members of the committee, my name is Carrie Sessions. I work as the Legislative Director at the Department of Ecology. We're signed in other today to provide technical input on the bill. Ecology provides guidance and establishes rules to guide lead agencies in implementing SEPA. While this bill seeks to integrate environmental justice into the SEPA process, several elements do conflict with established SEPA timelines. For example, the timeline established in Section 3 for the EJIS could exceed the 90-day limit for SEPA's threshold determination. This would pose challenges for lead agencies in undergoing SEPA and for ecology in developing the guidance. Additionally, the bill would prohibit the issuance of major new air pollution permits for new contaminant sources in areas ranked 9 and 10 on the EHD map. And this could prevent necessary upgrades or modifications to existing sources that would improve air quality and could jeopardize delegation of federal permitting authority. Environmental justice is a core part of ecology's work. We really appreciate the sponsors' intent and efforts on this bill, and we're happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions. Chris Covert-Bolds.
Chris Covert-Bolds, family physician in Seattle, representing Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility in support of the bill. Washington State currently has no process to use cumulative risk to the community in the process of permitting polluting businesses. New York, New Jersey, and New Mexico already do. We feel this risk-based approach to reducing the ongoing harm to overburdened communities will greatly improve health for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair's final testifier who is available, we had 932 sign-in pro, 243 sign-in con, and 3 other.
Excellent. That closes the hearing on 5380, and we will now move to 5091. Staff, will you give us the briefing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt Shepard-Croningsor again, staff to the committee. Senate Bill 5091 relates to motor vehicle emission standards for Washington. As quick background, the Federal Clean Air Act preempts state governments from adopting their own emission standards for new motor vehicles and engines, except for the state of California. California can apply to the U.S. EPA for a preemption waiver. The Clean Air Act permits other states to either adopt the federal standards or California's, and to date, 17 states have adopted at least some of these. Washington being one of those. The bill before you requires Ecology to adopt rules to implement motor vehicle emission standards that maintain consistency with the Federal Clean Air Act and prohibits Ecology from adopting California standards. It removes references to California standards in other state statutes, and it repeals the statutory authority granting Ecology the ability to implement California standards. A fiscal note is not yet available. That concludes my presentation.
I don't see any questions. Senator Benke, tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the time to doing this. My name is Matt Benke, State Senator of the 8th Legislative District. And thank you, Vice Chair Slatter and fellow committee members hearing the bill today, providing us some time to get us a platform. As we adopted the state's CARB rules, or the California Air Resource Board rules, fully understanding the impact on our industry, but we haven't seen really that impact in the details of what the economy is going to bring us and really what the industry impacts through energy, environment, and the technology that we see. That's where the creation of SB5380 comes to us. The bill lets us hear the challenges surrounding the zero emission adoption, let alone particularly in the medium and heavy duty trucks that we're seeing along the roads and the vehicles along with that. And really directly from the impacted parties that you'll see today coming up there. We're going to discuss a lot of the factors that complicated in Oregon, Idaho, and California, but not necessarily those that are impacting here in Washington State. Ours is a different state, and we should look at our state as a whole and discuss these for our own discussions here. Washington State's large truck buyers and the apples-to-apples comparison between diesel-fueled and zero-emissions options should be a primary cause of this, while maintaining the same level of productivity that meet our freight demands, but also reduces costs in our supply chain efforts. The trucking industry is out there and is building at the speed of trust, as we talked about in this committee. The trust that we have in our industry to innovate, the trust that we have to reduce costs, the trust that we have that we know we can lead an industry across the nation in the global environment, and a trust that we see that we can reduce carbon emissions. And there's been a long history of the industry coming to the table to meet not only the EPA standards now, but into the future, and innovating and doing what we can to increase jobs in our state. Industry recognizes we're at a cusp of an opportunity, a historical moment to lead where we can, but not to be so far ahead where it's causing problems in our industry. Local manufacturers are continuing to innovate, making sure that we have a share of the truck power and technology, and really the manufacturing feasibility of what these trucking operations have that are available today into the future, and you're going to hear some of that. And it's exciting work that we are doing right here in the state of Washington. But our concern, of course, the energy capacity. We have grid reliability issues, infrastructure that is really insufficient, and limited vehicle options that are really out here. Industry is being hindered. It's uncertain how our state initiative programs are going to be out there for purchasing the medium. We've had those discussions here and also in the transportation. It's going to be budget concerns that we're going to be grappling with the next couple of weeks as well. So like any major shift in history, look at the building, the trust that we see today. The trucking industry needs time to overcome some of these initial challenges. So SB 5091 puts the state and industry on a level playing field where we can, along with the rest of the nation, and where it is the industry needs to remain competitive, preserve jobs, and maintain the supply chain resiliency, and I would add the competitive leadership that we have in the state, but we should take that, we never take that for granted. So I offer this up. Any questions from the committee?
I don't see any questions, which is good because we got 28 testifiers in 30 minutes. Madam Vice Chair.
No pressure for anyone. Okay, I'd like to call up Jeffrey Pack, please. And it looks like a remote sign-in, and Alex Shea. And there will be a 1-minute timer. Jeffrey's on his way, so why don't we start with Alex Shea? And there's no Alex. Okay. While we're waiting for Jeffrey really quickly, there'll be a panel of Jerry Vanderwood, Brett Ferrulo, and Jeff Tenpass. If you want to come on up. Jeffrey, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yep, I was going to go first.
Okay, go ahead then.
Chair Shoemake, Ranking Member Benke, members of the committee, I'm Jerry Vanderwood with Associated General Contractors. AGC represents 1,000-member companies statewide involved in commercial construction. Our members build roads, bridges, schools, office buildings, and more. I'm here to express our support for this bill. With me online are 2 AGC members who will elaborate on the concerns the construction industry has for these CARB requirements. I would like to take a moment to emphasize that these requirements will have significant consequences for the cost of construction. Taking WashDOT as one example, our transportation budget currently has a huge hole. Preservation is underfunded by hundreds of millions. The fish passages need another $5 billion to come to conclusion. These requirements are digging a deeper hole. We encourage you to pass this bill. Deleaking Washington from California will provide opportunities to solve problems for Washington businesses and consumers while giving industries the flexibility needed to adopt carbon-reducing technologies based on their unique operational needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Quick question. Is this the emissions testing bill? I was misunderstanding what people were saying there.
This is 5091 motor vehicle emissions, yes.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Sorry. Let me get my notes back up here again. Okay, thank you for answering that. My name is Jeff Pack, representing Washington Citizens Against Unfair Taxes, and we are strongly objecting to the bill. I'm really trying to struggle right now to understand why anyone even supports this bill. It kind of appears to be a thinly veiled attempt to generate more money, has little to do actually with clean air, and serves to make an attempt to get multiple classes of vehicles off the road. While it exempts many older vehicles, it kind of hides even those vehicles that may not be licensable due to refrigerant used, if I'm following this bill correctly. This wasn't brought up in the status report. And then let's talk about the whole emissions test itself, which is really a complete joke. A car may fail an emissions test for nothing to do with emissions whatsoever. Let me give you an example I just ran into with my car. A fuel tank sender unit, which runs the gas gauge, went out and through an engine check. Has 0.0 to do with anything emissions related whatsoever, yet it failed to test. It appears any check engine code thrown fails the test, emissions related or not. The testing is poorly implemented. That's all. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much. Okay, Brett Ferrulo and Jeff Tenpass. Sorry, Jerry, didn't put them in order there for you.
Okay. Hey, Chair Shoemake, members of the committee, my name is Brett Ferrulo, and I'm co-owner of Northwest Construction located in Bellevue. We own a fleet of Class 8 heavy-duty trucks, and our 50-plus drivers are members of the Teamster Union. The current diesel engine technology eliminates 94 to 98% of all particulate and NOx pollutants. If we did nothing else except further implement the current diesel engine technology, our air would be clean. Class 8 trucks cost about $300,000 today, and they can work an 8 to 10-hour day on a tank of fuel. An EV truck costs $560,000 and operates half the miles due to its charge. I'll now have to buy 2 trucks to do the work of one. What costs $300,000 today will cost $1.1 million if we adopt California's rules or maintain them. This is not a trade-off of clean air versus profits. The current technology already reduces pollutants by 94 to 98%. The cost impacts resulting from this rule will not materially improve the air that we breathe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jeff Tenpass.
Hi, Chair Shoemake, members of the committee. I'm Jeff Tenpass, CEO and partner of BAI Environmental Services in Linden, Washington, and the 42nd. We're a specialty contractor that provides services for the oil and gas, construction, commercial, and municipal sectors. We employ about 100 people in Whatcom, Skagit, and Island counties. Related to SB 5091, we operate around 35 commercial vehicles. Today, I'm asking you to vote yes on SB 5091. We appreciate the goal of reducing carbon emissions, but the current policy will backfire. Because of the high cost of electric vehicles, approximately 2 to 4 times the cost of standard vehicles, companies will have to hold on to current fleets, which are less efficient than the newer, more efficient internal combustion engines. Plus, the cost of charging stations will be another cost for companies. This will be a challenge, perhaps unattainable for smaller firms. This policy is coming online in Washington State during the time of significant transportation funding challenges, as WashDOT and others have reported. The transportation budget already has $1 billion shortfall in the short term. It's projected to be much worse in the long term.
Thank you, Mr. Tenpass. We're just
Thank
running
you.
out of time. Appreciate it. Please feel free to send your testimony in writing as well. Okay, Sherry Call, Sean Waters, and Carl Hergart. If you're here, please come on up. And on deck would be John Barnes, Steve Gordon, and Olin Hunter. As soon as you're seated and you're ready, go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chair Shoemake, members of the committee, and thank you, Senator Banky, for bringing this bill forward. Sherry Call with the Washington Trucking Association, here in support of Senate Bill 5091, which aims to delink Washington State from California air resource Resources Board policy. The irony in this policy is in order for us to make any change to the impacted segment that we're concerned about, which is the medium and heavy duty space, we have to delink ourselves entirely in order for us to make that change. We're in favor of delinking or at least a delay so industry can come to the table. I've got some excellent stakeholders lined up today, and I think you'll see some thoughtful positions on this topic. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair Shoemake and Ranking Member Banky, for giving us the opportunity to speak today. My name is Carl Herget. I represent PACCAR, the maker of Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks, one of the largest truck manufacturers in the world. This year, we're celebrating our 120th anniversary, and through that long history, we've seen a lot of change. We've seen trucks run on steam, gasoline, diesel, and now electricity and hydrogen. But one thing has not changed, and that is that the customer really picks the winners and decides what technology will ultimately prevail. We think that the right path for Washington is to prioritize getting older trucks off the road, promote the low carbon fuel standard, and defer the advanced clean truck regulation to allow for infrastructure to build out, and then gradually introduce zero emission trucks where they make sense and build scale from there. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sean Waters. I'm the Vice President of Product Integrity for Daimler Trucks North America, headquartered down south in Portland, Oregon. Thank you for giving us the time to testify today. This is a super complex topic, and we're not going to cover much in 1 minute. So let me just get to 2 important points. In the Class 8 tractor category, of which we have about 40% of the market share, we've sold 3 electric tractors in the last 3 years. That will enable us to sell 39 diesel trucks this year in the state of Washington. Our normal market's about 500. So those new clean diesel trucks that are available today aren't going to be able to be purchased because of the ACT rule. Second, in order to comply with the ACT rule over its life, the state of Washington needs about 77 chargers to be coming online a week, starting 6 weeks ago. There's not enough charging available in the state. That's the reason why customers aren't buying them. Thank you.
Quick question, Carl. PACCAR is such a leader in sort of novel technology for trucking, and I know you've done some work in EV trucking. Can you just talk a little bit about just briefly about how advanced that is right now?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you for the question. We have, not only are we a leader in clean diesel technology, but we've made big investments in zero emission technology, including a full portfolio of battery electric trucks and establishing a $3 billion domestic manufacturing battery cell facility in northern Mississippi.
And these are very expensive, it sounds like, and it's tough to sort of transition them in, is what it sounds to me like. But are these long-haul trucking trucks, the EV ones?
Yeah, we cover the whole portfolio from class 5, 6, and up to 8.
Do you do tours?
Yes, we do. And of course, Washington is our home.
Okay,
We'd be happy to have you at our technical center up in Mount Vernon. I believe the Chair Shoemake has been there, but we'd be happy to have you.
I have a very cool picture of myself.
Follow-up question from Senator Harris.
Thank you, either one. How far on a charge right now? How fast can you recharge, and how much weight can these trucks hold, the big ones?
Thanks for the question. Currently, the range is about 150 to 250 miles. Depending on the charge station, it may take you 5 to 6 hours to charge the truck. Depends on the range, right? But it could be 10 to 20,000 pounds of extra weight with the batteries.
I'd just like to remind the committee that we have 21 more testifiers and 19 more minutes.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay. John Barnes. John Barnes, Steve Gordon, and Olin Hunter. And I think Olin Hunter is remote. So come on up, and as soon as you're ready to go, please proceed, because I'm in trouble now.
John. All right. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. John Barnes, I'm with Tech Equipment. We're the franchise Mack and Volvo dealer for a majority of the West Coast. We're no stranger to EVs. We've actually sold more Class 8 EVs than any other dealer group in the United States. So we're not against it. This being a California regulation, I think a good perspective is to look at California. California spent 3 to 4 years and billions of dollars developing the infrastructure and the technology. Then now we fast forward, the regulation has been in effect in California for 1 year. We've seen 70% decrease in Class 8 vehicle sales in California. To put that in perspective, in Washington, that's roughly $390 million in sales that would not be coming next year. So last year, when we looked at our order board, we had 450 trucks on order. As of right now, we have 0 on order. That's all. If I'm available for any questions, thank you.
Thank you so much. Steve?
Hi, thanks for having us here today, committee members. Steve Gordon. I represent Gordon Truck Centers, which is Freightliner dealer throughout the West with 7 locations here in Washington. We sold those 3 EVs that Sean earlier mentioned, so they're not exactly jumping off the shelf. So, you know, the challenge is that anytime you talk to a trucker, it's a hyper-competitive industry, and so if you're going to charge them 3 times as much for the initial purchase price, you just don't find a lot of buyers for that. Plus, they're 10,000 pounds heavier. They go 1/5 of the distance. They're just not quite up for the job today of the trucking industry. Trucking moves 75% of the economy, so it's vital to how we all get our goods. It's also an interstate marketplace. So if you impact Washington, that's one thing, but these buyers can just go across the border to Idaho, where we do have a dealership location, by the way, and we can sell trucks that aren't subject to these same regulations and EV mandates. So we just would like to see us de-link and move on and have our own solution for Washington State here in Washington rather than rely on California.
Good question for Steve. Real quick, you mentioned something earlier about the same kind of discussion going on in Oregon. Can you touch that real quick? What you're hearing from the other states?
Yeah, unfortunately, we also have a lot of dealership locations in Oregon, and we are the truck dealer on the West Coast, not selling any trucks in Washington and Oregon because they're subject to the same act or rule that they adopted the same position that Washington and the other states have.
Thank you so much. Olin Hunter?
Yes, can you hear the audio okay?
Yep, see you and hear you. Go ahead.
Excellent, great. Thank you, Committee Chair Shoemake, Ranking Member and Bill Sponsor, Senator Banky, and committee members. My name is Olin Hunter. I'm the Vice President of Dobbs Truck Group. I appreciate the opportunity this morning to testify in support of SB5091. Our company operates 8 commercial truck dealerships in the state of Washington, employing over 250 people that sell and support those heavy-duty trucks, which are the backbone of our nation's supply chain. As a result of adopting California's ACT rule here in Washington, our business has been able to place 0 new truck orders for customers that want to purchase diesel trucks, resulting in a significant loss of income and also resulting in less tax revenue for the state. Our customers are evaluating alternatives, including buying older, more polluting trucks, or in fact, moving their transportation businesses out of state, both of which are not good for the state of Washington. So in closing, I would urge the committee to support passing SB 5091.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, Mike Chester, Eric Badger, and Jim Contreras. And I believe Eric is on remote. Eric, if you can hear me, why don't you go ahead and begin and while everyone's coming up. Eric Badger? Okay, why don't you start? Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Shoemake, Senator Bunke. I'm Mike Chester. I'm with Peninsula Truck Lines. We are a less-than-truckload carrier based right here in Federal Way, Washington. We've been around since 1951. We operate 360 Class 8 tractors throughout the state of Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. So as we look at this, we've been put in a fairly precarious position. Number one, how to pay for it. There's a $250,000 delta between the diesel truck that we run today and BEV and a weight difference. So we are actively looking to purchase out of state, which was mentioned before, and operating that equipment out of state and bringing only used equipment in. And it's not what we want to do, but it's the position we feel that we've been left in at this point if we stay linked to CARB and have to follow ACT and we're forced into buying BEV. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Let me start by thanking the chair, members of the committee, for taking this time to meet and engage with various stakeholders today. My name is Jim Contreras. I manage the West Coast asset-based drayage operations for Ryder Supply Chain, and we support delinking from CARB Act in Washington State. Ryder has over 250,000 vehicles under management, 760 maintenance facilities, 100 million square feet of warehouse space, 45,000 employees, of which upwards of 1,000 of those are in Washington State. We are fully committed to being a leader in the transition to zero-emission vehicles. Ryder and our industry at large are fully committed to this transition away from internal combustion engines. However, the technology needed to implement a transition must be available, reliable, and cost competitive with current technology alternatives. Recently, Ryder at our customer's request examined impacts of implementing an all-EV fleet in the resulting white paper, I believe some of you have been shared with members here, shows estimates up to nearly 114% increase in total cost to transportation. Our analysis underscores the reasons EV adoption for commercial heavy-duty vehicles remains in its infancy.
Thank you. We're already running out of time.
You can go ahead and send the white paper if you want to. Thank you. Sure. Okay, Eric Badger.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to comment today in support of this bill. I represent our trucking company, LTI Inc. and Milky Way. Milky Way is a leading milk hauler in the Pacific Northwest and the state of Washington. We are one of the most efficient milk hauling fleets in the nation by maximizing every load by building lighter tanks and customizing our truck designs. We do this so our fleet can efficiently haul more than 2+ million gallons of milk per day. We support this bill because we see the unintended effects ACT has on our business and our business partners, and we know Washington can do better. Currently, there is not a single zero-emission tractor being produced that will work for our operations. Our fleet of more than 300 tractors work up to 24 hours per day. Drivers slip sheet, and there's not a single tractor that will work for our operations, plus the 2.5 times capital cost. At our payloads, the range of these zero-emission tractors is only about 150 miles. For us, on average, that would only be about a half of an average driver shift, further reducing our productivity.
Thank you. Eric, go ahead and send that by written testimony if that's okay. We're just in a rush here. Thank you. Corey Daniels, are you here? Come on up. Corey, Joelle Bouchy, who I think is on remote, and Tara Lynn Frey, as well as Christine Cooley.
Hello, my name is Corey Daniels. Thank you for allowing us to do this today. I'm the general sales manager for Pape Kenworth. We're the Kenworth dealer for Western Washington, everything west of Yakima. You've heard a lot of incredible statements as to the economic and how unaffordable the electric vehicles are. I'd like to give you an idea of how much it will cost the state to not have the tax revenues that will be coming in from this from the 7 major manufacturers within our state who all have dealers. Pape Kenworth averages about 500 Class 7 and 8 truck sales per year in the state, generating approximately $13 to $14 million in complete tax revenue. You multiply that times the 7, we're all about the same. You're darn near $100 million of lost revenues. This year, we have 42 total trucks that we can sell. We have a staff of 10 salespeople. 42 won't feed a single one of them. We pay out approximately $2 million in commissions per year. This year, we will 2.2 last year, and this year it'll be cut by $2 million. So you're affecting the lives and families of people who have made careers in this industry that don't have an option and don't have something that they can sell.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very, very much. Joel Bouchy, are you there? Next we aren't. Tara Lynn Frey. Okay, I'm going to call up Matthew Hepner.
Good morning, Chair Shoemaker and Committee. My name is Matthew Hepner. I'm the Executive Director of the Certified Electrical Workers of Washington, and we are here opposed to Senate Bill 5091. Washington Clean Vehicle Programs has been a win-win for creating good jobs and reducing transportation emissions. Advanced clean trucks and advanced clean cars are expanding opportunities for Washington's skilled electrical workforce while reducing harmful diesel pollution. Electrical workers are essential for clean energy economy, Installing and maintaining EV charging infrastructure not only creates good family wage jobs, but also opens up pathways to apprenticeships in the electrical industry. As the federal government cuts funding to the National Electrical Vehicle Infrastructure funding, we lost roughly $75 million worth of work here at home. Washington must remain a leader in creating energy jobs and protecting our clean vehicle rules. Supporting these programs protects jobs and apprenticeships, and employs the skilled workers needed to power clean cars and trucks. Please oppose Senate Bill 5091. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret, if you're there, please go ahead.
Hello, and thanks for the time. Really appreciate the opportunity to comment and show opposition to this bill. Zeem Solutions is
Can you
a
just
company
state your name for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Margaret Bolter with Zeem Solutions. Yeah, and Zeem Solutions is a company that builds shared charging infrastructure, and we're really excited to be investing in Washington. We have a site coming online in Sea-Tac, Washington, at the end of this year. We're going to have 42 fast charging ports that can serve 250 vehicles per day, predominantly Class 8, and park and charge over 70 vehicles overnight. And that's a 7.5 megawatt interconnect. We have a good story in California. We have a site outside of LAX that is profitable at the site level. We're doing 800 to 900 charge sessions a day. And we've dispensed over 6 million kilowatt hours. So just wanted to share that good news, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Alyssa Berger.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Berger. I'm a regional policy director for CalSTART, which is a national clean transportation nonprofit. And for the last 30 years, we've been focused on developing, assessing, and implementing large-scale zero-emission transportation solutions. I'm here today because I would just, first of all, like to applaud Washington's leadership as it relates to cleaner air and cleaner vehicles. While we're supportive of both ACC2 and HDO, I do want to focus on ACT here today. ACT will help bring down costs, and it's already doing so for manufacturers and fleet operators. This is also we're at a unique point in history with this rapid technological innovation as it relates to zero-emission vehicles. Washington has already deployed hundreds of zero-emission trucks across classes 2B through 8 in terms of being able to comply at the early stages of the Advanced Clean Trucks rule. Washington is in a very...
Thank you so much, Alyssa. I'm sorry we ran out of time. Okay, Leah Missick, Kate White-Tudor, and Mia Ayala Marshall. On deck is Joel Creswell, Rebecca Faust, and Travis Nelson. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Leah Missick here with Climate Solutions in strong opposition. Transportation pollution is our largest source of climate pollution in Washington, and this would roll back our tremendous progress. I cannot underscore how critical the Clean Vehicles program is for us to meet our climate targets in statute. Absolutely fundamental. State research shows this. But also these policies are working. They are thoughtful. They are gradual. They are not 0 to 100. They are incremental steps. But we have seen big jumps in EVs. For example, now about 25% of new passenger vehicle sales are EVs, and Washington has among the highest share of zero-emission, medium, and heavy-duty vehicle adoption. So I would just ask you, with great respect to the prime sponsor, to please throw some cold soup on this bill. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Chair Shoemaker and members of the committee. I'm Kate White-Tudor, testifying in opposition for the Natural Resources Defense Council. But I would also like to add a note of joy as an EV driver for 6.5 years now. It's great. My teenage son doesn't want to drive the other car. We've taken it on multi-state road trips. I've driven it through a flowing stream on dirt roads, and it's been good for everything. And it's cheap. It's like driving on $1 a gallon gas, and the price doesn't depend on our trade relationships with oil-producing countries because we make our electricity here at home. Please check out the NRDC report, Cleaner Cars, Fatter Wallets. The savings are even better when you measure over the lifetime of an EV. That's why fleets like Amazon are electrifying their trucks. They're saving millions on their fuel costs and maintenance costs. And I talked to a driver who delivered a package to me recently. She says she loves the truck. It makes her job easier, and it's safer, and it smells better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mia Ayala Marshall, I think you're in remote. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello again, Chair Shoemake, members of the committee, Mia Ayala Marshall. As already heard, I represent the Duwamish River Community Coalition, an organization seeking to elevate the voices of community members in South Seattle's Duwamish Valley who live in the middle of the Seattle-Tacoma Freight Corridor, including 2 state highways, 1 interstate highway, and the Port of Seattle and Northwest Seaport lines. I spoke earlier today about cumulative impacts, and this is just one area where my community needs protection and protective policy, not a repeal. Therefore, I am here today in strong opposition to Senate Bill 1591. Reducing harmful pollutants like diesel particulate matter and nitrogen oxide from trucks and cars is a necessary step to improve Washington's air quality, especially for communities like mine who experience disproportionate health impacts from exposure to these air pollutants. In my community, we have the highest rates of childhood asthma hospitalizations and a life expectancy difference that is 8 years shorter than the rest of King County. I urge you to protect the Clean Vehicles Program and stand with environmental justice communities like mine by voting no. Thank you for the opportunity to testify twice.
Thank you so much. Rebecca Faust, and then while we're doing that, why don't we have Joel Creswell and Travis Nelson? Come on up. And Morgan Irwin, if you're here. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yes, thank you. My name is Rebecca Faust. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for hearing this wonderful bill. I'm here in support. I have some concerns about being linked to California, a lot of concerns, but I'll hit on just a few. One, cost of groceries and other household items. I'm concerned about if you increase the cost of shipping, it increases the cost of those items. I also depend on having items either shipped to me or being able to use public transportation, which is usually big vehicles, to go places because I don't drive. And it's also my understanding that some homeless people, I live in an apartment, but some people depend on RVs, which are a fairly large vehicle, as homes. So I'm concerned about what the disproportionate impact this will have on some of the most vulnerable communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Joel, and while we're waiting, when we have Morgan Irwin come on up, you'll be our final testifier, Morgan. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks so much. Good afternoon, Chair Shoemake, Senator Banky, and members of the committee. Joel Creswell, Climate Pollution Reduction Program Manager at the Department of Ecology, here to testify in opposition to SB 5091. Under the Federal Clean Air Act, states have the option to either follow federal motor vehicle emission standards or California standards, which are more stringent. Washington is one of about 17 states that have adopted California standards. These standards are known as our Clean Vehicles Program. They've already reduced air pollutants and greenhouse gas emissions from Washington's transportation sector. Our adoption of zero-emission vehicles will reduce 8 million metric tons by 2030, per year by 2030 compared to 2021. And although the standards only start taking effect this year, automakers and truck manufacturers have been increasing their offerings of clean engines and zero-emission vehicles over the last several years. SB 5091 would repeal our mandate to adopt California standards and would shift us to less stringent federal standards. This would make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to meet our statutory greenhouse gas reduction mandates, and would also likely result in a reduction in the vehicle models available to Washington consumers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joel. Offside. Can you reach out to them? Yeah. Go ahead, Travis.
Good morning, Chair Shoemake, Vice Chair Slatter, Ranking Member Benke, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this bill today. My name is Travis Nelson, the Washington PUD Association, signed in today as other on Senate Bill 5091. The Washington PUD Association represents 27 not-for-profit community-owned utilities across the state. This bill would address one of our main concerns for our utilities to rely on the utility service vehicles with diesel engines to restore and maintain essential utility services. These are the bucket trucks, factor trucks, and auger trucks you see in your communities. Bottom line is that these vehicles in current technology do not meet the needs of the utility service vehicle. They actually don't last long enough on site. Some of the crews have to stay on site for days, and they actually use these vehicles for shelter from the cold and from the heat. So I'm signed in as other to provide additional information. We provided a letter to the Department of Ecology on this information, and we'd be happy to share that with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Morgan. Come on up. Okay.
Thank you, Margaret Irwin, representing Association of Washington Business, and we are signed in pro. Just a couple of quick things on this. This doesn't affect passenger vehicles. This is about our heavy trucks, our Class 7, Class 8, the big, heavy vehicles you see out there. When we see fleets like Amazon trying to modernize their fleets and take advantage of the new technologies coming out, they're doing that, but they're doing that in the light duty, not in the heavy duty, which is what we're talking about today. We thank you very much for having this hearing today, having the chance to hear from industry experts, really from both sides, and we look forward to working collaboratively with all sides to try to move forward and find a solution that works for Washington State and doesn't cripple us by taking away an existing technology before the next one's ready. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. That's final testifier, pro 1846, who chose not to testify, con 665, other 5.
That closes the public hearing for 5091 and adjourns our meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Bam.